Would you jump out of an airplane? In 1960, a battalion of conscripted cats didn't get a choice. Some sources say it was just 23 cats. Others claim it was as much as 14,000. A pretty big discrepancy. But no matter the count, one thing's clear. Operation Cat Drop was one of the strangest military efforts in Cold War history. Let me explain. In the 1950s, the World Health Organization, or WHO, launched a massive campaign to fight malaria, a deadly disease spread by mosquitoes. Their strategy? Spray everything with DDT, short for dichloro-diphenyl trichloroethane, which no one could pronounce and everyone should have been more suspicious of. DDT was the wonder chemical of the day. They didn't just spray fields, they sprayed homes, walls, furniture, entire villages. In some places, a chalky white residue coated the inside of people's houses like powdered sugar. The idea was simple. When a mosquito landed, the DDT would soak through its exoskeleton, fry its nervous system, and send it into a fatal seizure. And it worked beautifully. In some regions, the percentage of mosquitoes carrying the malaria-causing parasite dropped from 35.6% to just 1.6% in under 2 years. In Ceylon, now known as Sri Lanka, malaria cases plummeted from 2.5 million in 1945 to fewer than 100 by 1963. It was a massive public health win, wasn't it? On the surface, this seems like a perfect plan. Parasitic bugs making people sick? Spray the bugs, save the people. Obviously. But there was just one tiny problem. DDT wasn't just killing mosquitoes. In the mid-1900s, on the island of Borneo, then a British colony called Sarawak, now part of Malaysia, the DDT campaign had some unexpected side effects. In Sarawak, along with places like Thailand, Bolivia, and Mexico, local cats began dying off in large numbers. Why? Possibly due to biomagnification. The cats ate animals that had been exposed to DDT, and the poison built up in their bodies that way. Or possibly because they licked their paws and fur after brushing up against freshly sprayed surfaces and swallowed it directly. Probably it was a mix of both. Either way, the result was the same. The cats started disappearing fast. In Sarawak, locals reported that within a week of their homes being sprayed, their cats would have the shakes, get sick, linger for a few days, and then die. In Oaxaca, Mexico, the connection was so obvious that exterminators earned a grim nickname: Los Matagatos, the cat killers. Cats aren't just cute little housemates. They're natural-born rodent assassins, especially when it comes to, say, rats. And speaking of rats, forget breeding like rabbits, rats actually might be worse. With the cats gone, there was nothing to keep the rodent population in check. Add in a warm climate, plenty of food, and a government that couldn't supply enough rat poison, and the result was inevitable. A veritable rat-pocalypse. And all those rats, they were hungry. They tore through farmers' crops with alarming speed, chewing, clawing, and swarming their way through food supplies. What the malaria campaign had saved in lives, the rats were now threatening in livelihoods. But it wasn't just the food. Rats carry fleas, and fleas carry disease. With the rodent population booming, flea-borne illnesses surged. Cases of typhus and sylvatic plague, yes, actual plague, began rising rapidly. The very public health campaign meant to eliminate one deadly disease had simply cleared the path for new ones. Malaria cases dropped, sure, but now people were getting sick with something else. Things got so bad that even the New York Times took notice. In 1962, one article summed it up like this: American DDT spray killed the cats that ate the rats that devoured the crops that were the main props against communist agitation in the central lowlands. Basically, the US accidentally launched a plague of rats and provided an assist to communism. But rats weren't the only unintended consequence of DDT use. In tropical regions like Sarawak, homes were, and often still are, made from local plant materials, with thatched roofs that act as tiny ecosystems all their own. Ecosystems that unfortunately include caterpillars. Caterpillars who find thatched roofing delicious. Under normal circumstances, their numbers are kept in check by a specific type of wasp that reproduces by injecting its larvae directly into the caterpillars. It's gruesome and extremely effective. But DDT didn't spare the wasps. And without their natural predator, the caterpillar population exploded, increasing by over 50%. And those caterpillars, they ate the roofs. Literally. As their numbers swelled, they devoured the thatch until entire roofs began collapsing. Sure, a collapsing thatch roof isn't quite as deadly as, say, the ceiling of a suburban house falling on you, but it's still a massive disruption. And in regions where rebuilding takes time, labor, and resources, losing your roof to a bunch of pesticide-fueled caterpillars is, well, less than ideal. And if all that wasn't enough, birds of prey, some of which also help control rodent populations, started disappearing too. It turns out DDT didn't just mess with insects and mammals. It bioaccumulated in birds, especially in females, causing them to lay eggs with shells so thin that when they sat on them to keep them warm, they crushed them. No hatching meant fewer baby birds. Fewer babies meant fewer adults. And fewer adults meant even more rats. But let's get back to the cats. The British Royal Air Force eventually decided something had to be done to help the people of their island colony. And if the problem was too few cats, well, the solution was obvious. Send more cats. The trouble was, the Kelabit Highlands, where the rat problem was at its worst, weren't exactly easy to reach. There were no roads, no practical paths, just thick jungle and mountains. So, as they often did with other supplies, the Royal Air Force turned to their tried and true method: crates, parachutes, airdrops. And yes, that included the cats. According to naturalist Tom Harrison, who claimed to have been directly involved in Operation Cat Drop, the WHO eventually realized they needed to fix the feline fiasco they had helped create. In a 1965 report, Harrison described the response in detail. Cats were rounded up in coastal towns and loaded into parachute-borne containers, bulging with cats of every degree of age and rage. Yes, that is a direct quote. These airborne containers were then dropped by the Royal Air Force, which flew out of Sarawak's capital, Kuching, to deliver their furry payloads into the remote interior uplands. It was, by all accounts, a very weird day to be a cat. Harrison's report uses unusually casual language and includes drawings of cats dangling from parachutes in full-body harnesses, much like those used by human paratroopers. This has sparked debate about how seriously we should take his account. But who exactly was Tom Harrison? And more importantly, should we believe him? Tom was an Englishman who first came to Borneo leading an Oxford University expedition into the jungle. During World War II, he returned, not with students, but with commandos, leading a guerrilla unit into the remote mountains near Barrio Sarawak. Their mission? Convince the tribespeople to help hunt Japanese occupiers. After the war, he stayed on the island, where he curated the Sarawak Museum and devoted himself to archaeology, anthropology, ornithology, and basically any ology he could get his hands on. Throughout his life, Harrison wore many hats, literally and figuratively. He was an archaeologist, a conservationist, filmmaker, guerrilla fighter, ethnologist, explorer, journalist, soldier, museum curator, and writer. Or as his 1976 obituary put it, sometimes his intuition tempted him to make dangerous, imaginative leaps. So, was he a genius or just making stuff up? Honestly, maybe a little of both. Now, it's true, Harrison may have embellished parts of his story to make it sound more fantastical, but the core event, Operation Cat Drop, definitely happened. Multiple other sources confirm it. A New York Times article from June 1954 titled RAF to Shoot Two Cats into Jungle to Fight Rats reported exactly what the headline says, which feels both oddly specific and strangely underwhelming for something so bizarre. And in 1968, entomologist Gordon Conway, who had worked in Sarawak in the early 60s, gave a presentation on the ecological effects of insecticides. He cited Tom Harrison as his primary source for the cat drop and fully affirmed that it happened. But perhaps the most credible source of all is the Royal Air Force's own Operations Record Book, which notes that on March 13, 1960, among 7,000 pounds of supplies dropped were over 20 cats to wage war on rats which were threatening crops. So it's possible that 23 is the correct number, unless other feline deployments happened separately. The report also includes a response from the drop zone confirming all cats are safe and much appreciated. So hopefully, no cats were harmed in the making of this operation, just airlifted to paradise and given free entry into an all-you-can-eat buffet. No matter how wild the details may sound, parachuting cats into the jungle wasn't just a quirky legend. It really happened. And regardless of how many cats were involved, the bigger takeaway is clear. When it comes to public health and environmental policy, we have to think in terms of systems. The world is more complex than we'll ever fully understand, but that doesn't mean we throw up our hands. It means we do our best to assess the full scope of potential impact, ecological, social, and otherwise, before we act. We can't anticipate every consequence, but we can plan with care, monitor with humility, and correct course when things go sideways. Whether that means rethinking our strategy or airdropping a few cats with parachutes. If this bizarre slice of history made you smile, think, or just whisper, wait, what? Go ahead and like the video so YouTube knows it's worth sharing. Drop a comment to let me know what you think, or if you'd personally trust a parachuting cat with your food supply. And if you'd like more strange, surprising stories from the past, subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a video. And please share this video with a friend who loves weird history as much as you do. It means more than I can say. Thanks for watching.